If you want, you can support on my YouTube channel and listen to more stories. Hawker Sci-Fi Time. Sci-Fi Short Stories. They never stop. No matter how far you go, how well you hide, they'll find you. The council chamber was dimly lit, the atmosphere tense. The vast oval room filled with representatives of the galaxy's most powerful species, seated in high-backed chairs. Their faces reflected deep concern as an older Varen, his skin a dull green, stood at the center. His voice trembled, not out of fear for his own life, but for what he knew was coming. You think you've seen ruthless? You think you've seen aggression? No, you haven't seen humans. Toran, leader of the Ralak, the species known for their military, crossed his arms. He sneered at the Varen elder, dismissing him with a glance. We are not afraid of humans, Varen. We have dealt with their kind before. They bleed like any other. The elder shook his head. You don't understand. You've encountered them in small numbers, yes, but when their blood is spilled, when something of theirs is taken, his voice caught in his throat. They come for you. Not just one or two. They come in force and they don't stop until everything is returned or you are ash. Rule, a representative from the Ursh, an amphibious species, rippled with unease. This is absurd. The humans may have won a few skirmishes, but they are not invincible. The Varen elder sighed. It's not about invincibility. It's about what happens when you provoke them. They don't think like us. They don't follow our rules. They evolve in real time. When they're wronged, they don't fight for conquest or power. They fight because something inside them demands it. And that's what makes them dangerous. The chamber grew quieter. Some of the representatives shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Toran leaned forward, his expression hardening. We've intercepted their transmissions. They're nothing but a ragtag bunch of mercenaries and traitors spread across space. How dangerous can they really be? The Varen elder closed his eyes. Have you ever wondered why no species occupies their home system? Why no one has tried to take Earth? Rule spoke again, his voice laced with doubt. It's a backwater planet. They have little to offer. That's what the Krells thought too. The elder's eyes opened, his gaze piercing the chamber. They tried to take it a century ago. The humans wiped them from existence. A hushed silence fell over the room. The council had heard whispers of the Krell's fate, but the details had been murky, dismissed as legend or exaggerated tales. But here, in the heart of galactic diplomacy, the legend felt all too real. Toran remained unimpressed. We are not the Krells. We are the Ralak. We will take the human outpost and extract what we need. We've already planned the raid. The Varen elder's voice dropped, almost pleading. You have no idea what you're inviting upon yourselves. Humans are not the enemy you think they are. They don't care about politics or power structures. You steal from them. You attack them. And they will hunt you down. They will not negotiate. They will not retreat. Rule scoffed. You speak of them like they're some mythical beast. They're just another species, old man. The elder's eyes flickered with an intensity none of them expected. They are unlike anything you've ever faced. And when they come for you, you'll wish you had listened. Toran, unfazed, turned to the rest of the council. Enough of this. The humans are a threat, but they are not invincible. We will raid their outpost, take their technology, and ensure the survival of our kind. No more debate. A murmur of agreement rippled through the chamber. The Ralak leader straightened, his confidence apparent. The humans won't even know what hit them. The Varen elder stood alone at the center, watching as the council shifted toward action. His voice, now almost a whisper, cut through the noise one final time. They always know. The Ralak strike team moved in silence. Their ships, sleek and black, cut through the void of space toward the human outpost. Toran led the squadron from the command ship, his eyes fixed on the distant silhouette of the station. It hung in the darkness like prey, oblivious to the predator. Closing in. Status? Toran commanded. All systems green, a subordinate replied. No human patrols detected. Toran smirked. They're overconfident. Typical. He glanced at the tactical display. The outpost was lightly defended, a few automated turrets and a squad of soldier, hardly enough to repel a Ralak assault. He gave the order. Proceed with the attack. The strike team moved, breaching the station's defenses with ease. Explosions rippled along the outer hull, and within minutes, Ralak soldiers stormed the interior, cutting down the humans they encountered. It was almost too easy. Toran led the charge, his pulse steady. He approached the central command room, where the outpost's commander, a human, awaited. The man stood defiant, his uniform singed, blood trickling down his face. He held a sidearm, though he didn't raise it. "You don't know what you've done," the commander said, his voice calm despite the chaos around him. Toran approached, his plasma rifle aimed at the human's chest. "I know exactly what I've done. You're defeated." The commander smiled, a strange, unsettling grin. "You think this is over, but it's just beginning." Toran didn't hesitate. He pulled the trigger. The human crumpled to the floor, lifeless. Toran turned to his soldiers. "Secure the data. We're done here." As the Ralak soldiers began extracting the stolen human technology, Toran felt a strange unease creep into his mind. Something about the human's last words lingered. "We've neutralized all resistance," one of his officers reported. "The outpost is ours." Toran nodded. "Good. Begin extraction." But as he spoke, an alarm blared throughout the station. Red lights flashed, and a deep, mechanical voice echoed through the halls. Toran's eyes narrowed. What? How could they? Before he could finish, the ship's sensors screamed to life. Dozens of human vessels appeared on the radar, emerging from hyperspace with terrifying speed. It was as if they had been waiting, watching. Toran's confidence faltered for the first time. "All units prepare for evac." The humans had arrived, and they were not pleased. The human ships didn't hesitate. They moved like a coordinated swarm, cutting through the Ralak fleet. Toran watched in horror as his ships were torn apart, their shields shattered by an unrelenting barrage of firepower. "Evacuate! Now!" Toran screamed into the comms, but it was too late. The humans had already boarded the Ralak vessels, storming through the corridor's width. Toran fought his way to the escape pods, but everywhere he turned, he saw his soldiers being cut down. The humans were faster, stronger, more prepared than anyone had anticipated. Toran's heart pounded in his chest as he reached the pod bay. Just as he was about to board, a figure stepped into his path. A human soldier's, his rifle, pointing on Toran's chest. "You should have listened," the soldier said coldly. "You don't take human stuff." Toran raised his weapon, but the soldier was quicker. A single shot echoed through the bay. As Toran fell to the ground, the last thing he heard was the mechanical hum of human reinforcements, moving through the station like death incarnate. Toran's vision blurred as he lay on the cold metal floor, the pain in his chest throbbing with each shallow breath. The soldier who had shot him turned and moved on without a second glance. Toran wasn't worth another bullet. His body was already broken, and the humans had more pressing matters. He heard the unmistakable sound of boots, heavy and deliberate, marching in unison down the corridor. The humans weren't rushing. They didn't need to. They had already won. Toran struggled to sit up, forcing his trembling hands to brace against the floor. His ears rang from the chaos still unfolding around him. The humans moved in. It felt like they had practiced this assault 1,000 times. The station shook violently as another volley of human fire tore into the remaining Ralak ships. The command feed on his visor, still linked to his fleets, operations flickered as the last of his vessels were either destroyed or captured. Each ship's icon blinked out one by one, his entire force reduced to nothing in a matter of minutes. He coughed, blood spilling from his mouth, his voice barely a whisper. How did they know? But he already knew the answer. They had been warned. The Varen Elder had tried to tell them. The humans always knew. With great effort, Toran pushed himself to his feet, stumbling toward the emergency console. If there was any chance of survival, it was now. He keyed into the system, trying to send a distress signal. Maybe some distant Ralak forces could hear his call. Maybe they could mount a rescue. As he typed, the console's screen flickered and went dark. He slammed his fist into the panel, but it was useless. The humans had disabled everything. The lights around him dimmed, and the station's atmosphere grew colder. The human soldier had already begun shutting down life support systems. They weren't interested in capturing the station or its resources. They didn't need to. This wasn't about conquest. This was punishment. Torrin staggered down the corridor, searching for any way out. He heard gunfire in the distance, short bursts, followed by eerie silence. The humans weren't taking prisoners. Every Ralak soldier left behind would be executed. A voice broke through his comms, garbled and panicked. "Commander, we can't hold them." Then nothing, static. Torrin stumbled into an airlock where a single escape pod remained. His hand shook as he pressed the release button. The pod door hissed open and he collapsed inside. He had to survive. He had to get away from this place. He had to warn the rest of the Ralak. As the pod systems activated, the small vessel shot away from the station, hurtling toward the black void of space. Torrin lay back, gasping for breath, clutching his side as blood seeped through his fingers. He was alive for now, but even as the distance between him and the humans grew, he couldn't shake the feeling that they were still watching him, that they knew exactly where he was going. The pod's autopilot directed him toward a neutral sector, safe territory. At least that's what the navigation system said. But Torrin had learned the hard way that there was no safe place when it came to humans. Minutes passed in tense silence as the pod drifted through space. The weight of his failure hung over him. His fleet, his soldiers, all wiped out in a single, devastating strike. He had underestimated them. They all had. Then, just as the pod systems indicated they were nearing the neutral zone, the proximity alarms blared. Torran's heart raced. No, this can't be. A shadow fell over the pod, and he looked through the viewport to see a human warship, sleek and menacing, blocking his escape route. They had followed him. They hadn't just destroyed his fleet. They were hunting him. Down personally, the pod's comms crackled to life. A deep, calm voice spoke through the static. "Tehran of the Ralak, you've stolen from humans. And you thought you could run?" Torrin's hand hovered over the manual controls, but he knew it was pointless. The humans had him cornered, and there was no escape. "We gave you a chance to walk away," the voice continued. "But you didn't listen." A pause. Then coldly, "Prepare to be boarded." The comms went dead. Torrin sat frozen, staring at the viewport. His fingers gripped the control panel as fear gripped his chest. He had heard stories, whispers in the galactic corridors of what humans did to those who crossed them. They never let you go. And now he would be one of those stories, a cautionary tale. The pod shuddered as the human boarding clamps latched. Hunter Torrin's breath came in ragged gasps as the airlock door slowly hissed open. Heavy boots echoed on the metal floor as the human soldier stepped inside. He was cornered, out of options, out of time. A figure stepped into the pod. The same soldier who had shot him on the station. His expression was blank, unreadable. He didn't raise his weapon. He didn't need to. Torrin swallowed hard, his voice barely a whisper. "Why?" The soldier stared at him, his face hard, his eyes cold. "Because you didn't listen." And with that, the soldier pulled the trigger. Torrin's world went black. In the aftermath, the human forces withdrew as quickly as they had appeared. The Ralak fleet was gone, their outpost in ruins. Word of the human retribution spread like wildfire across the galaxy. Species who had once viewed humans as just another race now understood the truth. You didn't steal from humans. You didn't provoke them. Because when you did, they didn't just retaliate, they erased you. The council that had once dismissed the Varan elders' warnings now sat in silence. They knew the humans wouldn't come for them unless they crossed a line. But that line, once crossed, was a death sentence. The elder stood in the middle of the council chamber once more, his voice low but clear. "You were warned," and now you see the cost. No one spoke. No one dared to. Enjoy another amazing story. If you want, you can support on my YouTube channel and listen to more stories. Frau's Sci-Fi Time, Sci-Fi Short Stories. They don't fight like others, do they? Sorak's voice echoed through the chambers of the Galactic Council. His long, serpentine body curled around the central podium as he looked out at the delegates from across the stars. No, they don't, answered Tarask, the representative from the Andolian Dominion. He was quiet for a moment, his leathery wings folded neatly at his sides. It's something else. The council gathered in silence, their collective thoughts heavy. The humans had entered the galactic stage only a few rotations ago, but they had already left a mark, one that sparked fear. There had been whispers, rumors of their uncanny aggression, their refusal to retreat when cornered, and their unexpected victories in skirmishes with other species. Sorak shifted uneasily. Tell me, Torask, what have you observed? What makes them so different? Torask leaned forward. They don't start wars, not usually. But when they fight, when they get mad, it's like nothing I've ever seen. There's no warning. One moment, negotiations seem possible, the next. His voice trailed off, a chill settling over the room. The Andolian's account had spread faster than he anticipated. It wasn't just about humanity's ability to wage war, but their rage, a primal force that no other species could replicate. Torask's own Dominion forces had experienced it firsthand. He rubbed his scaled temples. He had seen something few others had. You need to hear this story, Sorak, he muttered, before glancing around at the other representatives. All of you need to hear it. It's the only way to understand. The council leaned in, every pair of alien eyes fixated on Torask. He cleared his throat. It was supposed to be a simple negotiation, a trade dispute between our cargo ships and theirs. They felt they'd been cheated, though the numbers were clear. We thought the discussion would end like all others, talk, compromise, settle. But the humans weren't settling. One of them, he was their leader, stood up during the meeting, eyes burning. I swear it, those eyes. Something changed. Tarask paused, his eyes narrowing, his voice low. The room felt hotter, tension so thick, it was suffocating. My lieutenant nudged me. Something's wrong, he said. I didn't see it at first. But then, one by one, the humans stood up. Their leader spoke, no more than 3 words. Fix it, now. And when we hesitated, his rage spilled over. We barely escaped that room alive. Sorak sneered, flicking his forked tongue. Rage? That's what you're afraid of? Emotions? Every species experience anger. This is nothing special. Torask shook his head, his wings twitching. You don't understand. This was different. Their anger is focused. He hesitated, then corrected himself. No, that's not the right word. It's instinctual, but once it starts, it doesn't stop. It grows, amplifies until they're like predators, ready to rip apart anything in their path. They destroyed an entire fleet over a handful of credits. And we weren't even trying to provoke them. A murmur spread through the council. A few laughed nervously, while others seemed visibly unnerved. Most species in the galaxy relied on diplomacy, reason, and tactics. But humans? They appeared to be ruled by something far more dangerous. Sorak snorted. You're saying that humans, these primitive creatures, are dangerous because they are crazy if you touch their stuff? Torask clenched his jaw, the memories flashing through his mind. They are dangerous because their anger makes them irrational. I've seen them fight when outnumbered, fight when outgunned, and even when victory was impossible, they fought harder. And when they win, it's not from strategy. It's not even from brute strength. It's from sheer, unexplainable fury. You can't predict it. You can't stop it. The chamber grew quiet. The silence, however, was short-lived. A new voice broke through the tension. I've seen it too. All eyes turned toward the towering figure of Arlen, the delegate from the Riemann Coalition. He'd been silent until now, but his deep voice commanded the room. Our fleet encountered humans near the Drift Nebula. They came to our defense, actually. Some pirate clan was raiding our ships. At first, they fought like any other species. But then something happened. One of their commanders was killed. I can't explain it, but after that, the humans changed. They moved faster, fought harder. The pirates never stood a chance. It was over in minutes, and the humans, those still standing, looked like they could have torn apart the entire nebula with their bare hands. It wasn't about the battle anymore. It was personal. I've never seen anything like it. Sorak frowned. Eyes narrowed as he studied Arlan. So, they fight harder when madness takes over? Is that what you're saying? Arlan nodded. Yes. And it's not just their strength, it's something deeper. I don't think they can control it once it begins. A hushed murmur spread across the room. The council members exchanged uneasy glances. This wasn't about military might. It was about unpredictability, an alien force the council had never considered. Sorak leaned forward, his eyes glinting with curiosity. So, how do we stop them? How do we contain this anger? Tarask shook his head slowly. That's the problem. Once it's triggered, there's no stopping it. The council chamber fell silent once more. Every delegate present was processing the same thought. Humans, with their seemingly endless capacity for rage, were more dangerous than they had ever imagined. There's no stopping it once it starts, Sorak repeated, incredulous. His emerald scales rippled under the chamber's dim light, his disbelief clear in his voice. You're suggesting they can't control their own emotions? Torask grimaced, folding, his leathery wings tighter against his back. Control isn't the issue. It's what happens when they lose it. Their anger isn't like ours, Sorak. It's raw. It consumes them. They turn into something else. The room grew colder, more oppressive, with each word. Every species in the council had evolved in some way or another to suppress extreme emotional reactions. It was necessary for survival in a galaxy built on fragile alliances. Anger, unchecked, led to destruction. But humans? They were something different, something dangerous. Sorak clicked his teeth, eyes narrowing at the Andolian. You fear them too much, Torask. They are not gods. They bleed. They can be defeated. Torask nodded slowly, his talons scraping the edge of the podium. Yes, they bleed. But when they get mad, it's as if pain fuels them. They fight harder the closer they get to death. The more you hurt them, the stronger they become. Arlan, who had been watching silently from the far end of the chamber, shifted uncomfortably. He leaned forward, his eyes gleaming under his heavy brow. Sorak, this isn't just about bleeding. Torask is right. Humans, they can be calm one moment and then, with no warning, explode into fury. It's not about military tactics or strategy. It's instinctual. And you can't predict when that rage will surface. The room darkened as a towering figure entered, the lights glinting off his battle-hardened frame. The Makari general, Dolian, had arrived. His voice boomed across the chamber. You're all weak, afraid of some primitive species because they show their teeth when provoked? That's nothing new. Every predator does that. The question is, why are you so quick to run? Tarask's jaw tightened as he stared up at Dolian. General, you've never faced them in battle. You don't understand. Understand? What? That they're emotional? That they fight back when pushed? Dolian sneered, his mechanical limbs whirring as he moved closer. I've studied the humans. They're not as unpredictable as you think. They have patterns, weaknesses. The room was silent as Dolian approached the council's central dais. I led an expedition into their territories, he said, voice filled with pride. We watched them, analyzed their reactions. They're nothing more than creatures of instinct. Tarask's eyes burned with frustration. You don't know what you're talking about. You watched them. I fought them. You don't understand the difference until you've seen their eyes when they're mad. Dolian's lips curled into a smirk. Oh, I understand. I understand that you're afraid of them. and fear makes you weak. But me? I'm not afraid." He turned to face the council, his booming voice filling the room. "We have dominated the galaxy for eons. We've faced more powerful species than these humans. What makes you think they're any different?" Tarask's wings twitched as he stepped forward. "Because they are." "Then explain," Dolian growled, leaning forward. "Explain why these primitive beings are a threat to the council. Explain why you're all cowering like prey before them." Arlen's voice cut through the tension like a blade. "It's not about their strength, General. It's about what happens when they're pushed too far. We're not talking about a simple species war here. Humans don't just fight, they change when enraged." Dolian crossed his arms, his patience thinning. "And what is this change?" Tarask's voice was barely above a whisper. "They don't stop. They don't retreat. Even when they're outnumbered, they keep coming. Even when they're outgunned, they find ways to win. And when they lose someone important, when that rage takes hold, everything else disappears. They become singularly focused on destruction." Dolian laughed, his voice booming. "Destruction? Focused? We've all faced destruction, Tarask. It's nothing special." But Arlan shook his head. "You haven't seen it. Humans don't just fight for survival. They fight for vengeance. And when they're mad enough, they'll tear down entire civilizations to get it." Sorak, ever the skeptic, scoffed. "Vengeance? Against whom? The galaxy?" Tarask's face hardened. "Against anyone who stands in their way." Dolian opened his mouth to speak, but a sharp noise interrupted him. A hollow screen flared to life in the center of the room, displaying a battle report. The Makari forces had engaged human ships near the Niara system. A collective murmur swept through the council as the screen showed the carnage. Makari ships were burning, torn apart by human forces. What started as a minor skirmish had escalated into something far worse. Human ships were diving into the Makari fleet with reckless abandon, tearing through defenses without a second thought. "General," Sorak hissed, eyes widening as he watched the destruction unfold. "What is this?" Dolian stared at the screen, disbelief flashing across his face. "This isn't possible. Our forces should be overwhelming them." The holoscreen zoomed in on a single human battleship, its engines burning bright as it plowed through Makari cruisers. Its hull was scorched, its shields depleted, but it kept pushing forward, ramming into ships like a cornered beast. "They should have retreated!" Dolian shouted, his fists clenching. "Why didn't they retreat?" Tarask's voice was cold as ice. "Because they're mad, General. And when humans get mad, retreat is no longer an option." The holoscreen flashed, again, this time showing a close-up of the human fleet's commander. His face was twisted in fury, his eyes glowing with an intensity that sent a chill down the spines of every delegate in the room. Arlen leaned forward, his voice barely a whisper. "That's what I'm talking about, that look. That's what makes them different." Dolian watched, his arrogance fading as the truth settled in. The humans weren't fighting for victory anymore. They were fighting to destroy. Sorak stared at the screen, the weight of the situation finally hitting him. "General, what have you done?" Dolian didn't respond. He was too busy watching as his fleet, his entire fleet, was torn apart by human ships that refused to stop. "Dolian, respond!" Sorak shouted, his voice cutting through the chaos as the holoscreen flickered with images of destruction. The council members sat frozen, the reality of the situation hitting them hard. The Makari general's silence hung in the air like a suffocating cloud. He had built his reputation on strength and cunning, but as he watched human ships dismantle his fleet piece by piece, a sinking realization settled in. "This shouldn't be happening," Dolian finally growled, his mechanical limbs twitching in frustration. "How are they doing this?" Tarask stepped closer, his gaze steady. "It's their anger, General. It fuels them. They turn every loss into a weapon. Each fallen comrade becomes a reason to fight harder. You underestimated them." The holoscreen displayed another explosion, a Makari cruiser erupting into a fireball. "They're losing ships," Sorak said, dread creeping into his voice. "Are you telling me they're willing to destroy their own vessels to achieve this?" That's exactly what I'm saying, Arlen added, pointing at the screen. They don't care about the odds. They don't think about loss. They just fight. The council members shifted uneasily in their seats, processing the implications of Tarask's words. A battle was unfolding in real time, but they were no longer mere spectators. They were part of a growing storm, and the winds were shifting. We need to intervene, Sorak stated, his voice trembling with urgency. We must send reinforcements to Dolian's fleet. If they lose this battle, we could face an uprising, or worse. Dolian clenched his fists, the weight of his failure sinking. No, we can't show weakness. We can't send help now. Why not? Tarask shot back, eyes ablaze with anger. Because you underestimated them? Because you refused to see the threat they pose? Dolian, your pride could cost us everything. Enough, Dolian snapped, his mechanical frame towering over the others. This is not about pride. This is about strategy. If we intervene now, we only invite further aggression. The humans will see it as weakness. Another explosion lit up the hollow screen, drowning out Dolian's words. The humans were pressing their advantage, fighting with a ferocity that was both shocking and terrifying. They were winning, and it was happening far too quickly. Tarask turned to the screen, dread settling over him. But if we do nothing, we risk losing our standing in the galaxy. The Council must act. We can't allow this madness to continue. Arlen, too, sensed the urgency. We have to be proactive. If we let this fight spiral out of control, it will not just be about Makari versus humans. It will involve every member of the Council. They'll see this as a threat to our existence. We can't afford to underestimate the anger of a species that has already shown its capacity for destruction. Sorak glanced at Dolian, whose expression was a mix of anger and denial. What will it take for you to accept this? Look at the evidence. This is no longer just a battle. It's a war that could engulf us all. Dolian inhaled sharply, but the general's pride had not yet allowed him to admit defeat. We'll adapt. We'll find a way to control the narrative. Humans may be strong, but they're still primitive. They'll tire. They'll make mistakes. But as they watched the battle unfold, it became increasingly clear that the humans were not tiring. Their ships continued to surge forward, striking with a ruthless efficiency that left the Makari forces reeling. The hollow screen flickered again, capturing a moment that sent chills through the council. A lone human fighter, battered but still, flying, dove straight into the center of the Makari fleet, detonating in a spectacular explosion. The ship had sacrificed itself, taking out 3 enemy vessels in the process. They're willing to die for each other, Arlan breathed, disbelief etched on his face. They'll destroy everything to protect their own. Sorak's voice dropped to a whisper. What are we facing? Tarask's wings rustled with urgency as he replied, We're facing the anger of a species that will not back down. Their unity, fueled by rage, is their greatest strength. It's how they've become an unstoppable force. Dolian turned his back on the screen, frustration boiling over. We will crush them. We must. But as he turned, a new message pinged on the hollow console. It was a transmission from the front lines. Sorak's eyes widened as he read the incoming data. General Dolian, he shouted, urgency cutting through the room. They've breached the outer defenses. We're losing ships faster than anticipated. We need to act now. The room fell silent, the weight of realization crashing down on them. There was no longer time for debate. The humans had tapped into something primal, something instinctual. Their anger was not just a weapon. It was a rallying cry, a unifying force that could break. Through any strategy, Dolian's jaw tightened, his mind racing. We can't let them claim victory. If they do, they'll see themselves as champions. They'll rally their kind, and we'll be facing an entire race that's hungry for revenge. Then what do we do? Tarask pressed, desperation creeping into his voice. We have to confront them, Dolian replied, his tone darkening. Face them head on, but not as an enemy, as equals. We need to show them we are not afraid of their rage. It's the only way to bring them to the negotiating table. Sorak stared at Dolian, shock registering in his features. You want to reason with them? After this? Yes, Dolian snapped. It's the only way to prevent further destruction. They need to see we are willing to stand against them without fear. It's a gamble, but it may just work. Torask shook his head. You're playing with fire, General. If you approach them, now it could escalate even further. They won't listen in their current state. Dolian turned away from the council, his voice firm. I'll do what must be done. I'll lead the way. As the council members looked at one another, unease settled over the room. They were on the brink of a confrontation that could reshape the galaxy forever. The anger of humans was a force unlike any other, and as they prepared for the next steps, one thought remained clear. This was only the beginning. Outside the council chamber, the echoes of destruction continued. Each explosion marked another piece of a fragile alliance on the brink of collapse. The humans had shown what they could do when provoked, and as the galaxy held its breath, one question lingered in the air. How far would they go in the name of rage? With each passing moment, the stakes grew higher, and the council found itself in a race against time. The time for talking was over. Now it was time to see just how deep the madness of humans ran, and whether they could confront it or be consumed by it. Thanks for diving into this story with me. Don't miss out on the next one. Hit that subscribe button, give this video a big thumbs up, and drop a comment below with your thoughts. I'd love to hear what you think.